Hey y'all. I've been playing a lot of Swordcraft recently because I really like losing to the most popular card in the entire format. I do think it's kind of fun and whimsical to play for the late game in a craft that has exactly one relevant source of card draw. So as you might imagine, the key to your success with this kind of list will largely be pacing your efficient removal tools so that your opponent is spending more resources to reconstruct the board than you are. Now, obviously, failing to contest an early board is basically an immediate loss for every deck at every level of play, except for Runecraft. So sometimes you do just have to use your early trading tools on garbage. Like, I valsed this 1-2 to turn it into an arguably more threatening set of 1-1s, and then my opponent, out of respect for that, uses a kill spell on a 2-1 that wasn't doing anything right before my evolve turn to deal 1 face damage and draw 1 card. So now they get to deal with this board state, and even though Zirconia never lives in this situation, it's usually pretty difficult for your opponent to build a sticky board while actually answering a 6-attack follower. Amelia, in addition to being my fucking wife, is basically the only card in the craft that gives you long-term sticking power. And if your opponent fails to answer a wide board at basically any phase of the game, her Super Evolve is pretty much an immediate win condition. Orcus doesn't exist, by the way. It can be tempting to curve out and flood the board with as much stuff as you can, but you would really prefer to save your Evolves for the late game, and that means not overcommitting cards that have secondary removal effects, because, like, I bet my opponent didn't draw any cards. Super Evolves are basically the critical point where everybody can put a 14/14 on your screen, and if you don't kill it, you lose instantly. Basically anything with the rush keyword is pretty good for getting you through these turns, and boy howdy do I not have anything in my hand with that text on it. But my opponent didn't feel like super evolving into a 1-2, I wonder why, and so they're still within Vals's kill range. Since they gave me a softball board to answer, I don't have to break Vals's ambush right away, and that means I can super evolve him and keep him barely alive versus Aragavi. So, like, can I ask a question? Is there, like, a single ward in Abysscraft? Like, at all? Anyway, then I played the guy who does 12 storm damage on turn 8.
I never forget a winner!
That was a 20 damage board, by the way. So that's kind of your ideal scenario if people are a little bit too cautious about answering your boards, but what if people are really, really excited to answer your boards? Like, what if they just have the coolest and most based cards in the entire game, and then they play all of them? Like, they play every single fucking card. It does feel kind of bad to trade into a token whose entire purpose is to die and make gear materials, but this is one of those matchups where their kill range is worryingly relevant from about turn 7 onward, and I would rather make that trade than have both of those followers die to puppets and then get plinked for 1 damage 4 turns in a row, so sometimes you just have to. So looking at my hand right now, my predictions are that I'm fine to use the Samurai to establish some board presence, and that I'm going to have a really bad turn 6. And one of those predictions turns out to be right, and it's not the Samurai, because they just jack off and make artifacts for an entire turn, and he may as well not have been there. So turn 5 rolls around, and I know that Luminous Mage is gone if I play her, but if I pass, they just make 100 betas, and I probably just lose instantly. I wouldn't say I love watching Portalcraft play Spider Solitaire, but watching them fuse Alpha does tell me that they're probably going to kill me with Omega, which puts me on a 4-turn clock to actually accomplish any task. So, good news, I have a really good 7-drop and a really good 8-drop in my hand. Bad news, my prediction came true. Now I know this looks like possibly the most dickless turn 6 available in this game, and while I won't deny that Kagemitsu Pass is, like, 15 IQ, I am going to need Ignominious Samurai for later. Now, I would really love to play Olivia here and have a chance at drawing an Albert, but I would have needed to Super Evolve her in order to clear Sylvia, and that leaves me with not enough Super Evolves to both deal with an Orcus and do anything else. God, Geno's so good. Even in a 1-for-1 scenario, he's basically a Super Evolve because your opponent usually has to Super Evolve something into him to kill him. Hey, it's Kagamitsu! As long as Super Evolves are part of the equation, I do prefer to spread the threat out a little bit rather than making one really big bomb, and Olivia is still definitely a priority 1 target because it's the last Super Evolve value I have left. I have sort of a vindictive belief that playing around Orcus is actually impossible. Like, you need to commit something to the board eventually, or they just win. But it's good hygiene to at least try to keep an answer in your hand once turn 8 rolls around, and preferably also every turn after that for the remainder of the game. I really, really love Portalcraft. Amalia is probably the best 8-drop in the entire game, and does require your opponent to fulfill some pretty specific conditions, since as long as she's on the field, it's basically impossible to make long-term progress. They don't have any raw fusion materials left to answer this, but I do kind of need to kill them this turn. Oh no, how am I going to clear this 5 damage ward when Enhanced Albert only hits for 3? Hey, it's Kagamitsu! So I know that last one probably looked like the most illegitimate thing to ever happen on camera, but I swear to God that does happen. I mulligan both copies of Luminous Mage here looking for Albert because I know they're not going to actually do anything for the first 4 turns anyway, so what the fuck am I warding against? Playing against Rune is a little weird because your instinct tells you that your late game win condition should be completely gone and they're just going to dimension climb 100 times. But in practice, you kind of have to play that out anyway sometimes if you can't get anything started early. And you actually have a pretty good long tail against basically every matchup except Havencraft, as long as nobody has any evolves. So you do have to kind of straddle an awkward position where you want to appear very big and scary so that people sync evolves into you at disadvantage, but if you take too much face damage, you just, like, die to random stuff in the late game. I really don't want them to evolve Miss Miranda and get an extra spell boost, so I considered trading here, but then I remembered that it's turn 5, and every single Rune player has Anangrea in their hand every single time. Like, every single fucking time. So while the awesome lesbian couple is reducing my board to ashes, I'm just thinking about how much I want to play Hound of War. Hound of War might be the only Swordcraft card that is actually doing more than its rarity. At Bronze, the ability to represent 4 attack on turn 3 and 12 attack on turn 6, and split it between multiple targets, is kind of fantastic, actually. Rather than actually trading Hound into their big body, I do this little evolve dance to try and make something that's slightly more annoying for them to trade into, and it just does not work at all because they have the 3rd Miranda and just blast it. But even though I only kept like 1 really sad token on the board, I still have to play the Amelia line because I would like to actually draw my late game tools, please. Luminous Lance Trooper isn't my favorite pickup there, but it does make the Super Evolve line look a lot more credible because it's just another 2 damage instances they have to get through. Now with Super Evolves coming into play, this is usually the what? Okay. They do all of that just to play their best on-curve 7-drop anyway, except now they have a hand they hopefully like better. So this is the part of the game where I realized that this is either going to end next turn, or take another 5 minutes. What follows is a bunch of awkward damage sequencing to make sure I trade as well as possible and don't randomly die to Flame Destroyers. Thank fucking God the replay speeds this up, so you guys don't have to watch me try to sequence the Apollo line for 20 minutes. Like, what the fuck was I even cooking? Usually when you use your last Super Evolve in this matchup, they just drop 5 Flame Destroyers and you lose instantly. But that Amalia barrier is still getting me some value, and I figure if we're going for round 2, I may as well preserve my opportunity to just do it again. So then I did it again. I think if I had been holding anything except 2 Genos and an Albert, I probably would have tried to accomplish something different here. But Geno gives me a very easy way to clear late game bombs without Super Evolves, and Albert gives me some actual hope of hitting their face on turn Fucktillion. So spending this many cards and a Super Evolve to clear this board isn't great, but it's probably the best option that I have, and if they just randomly Silent Rider me for 13, then I guess I had fun. It does feel kind of good to watch them 12 damage Stormy Blast an unevolved 4-4. And Kagamitsu's here, so that's, like, good. Albert is no longer useful as a trading or clearing tool at this stage of the game, and I do have to do some damage eventually, or they're probably just going to Sage Light up 12 HP and then, like, do a little dance. Every second I spend not eating Dimension Climb Sonic Riders is another second that I play 1 card and they answer it with, like, 4. This Geno feels kind of bad, but it's also usually the point where they commit a Super Evolve to kill him, and I sure do have another Geno for whatever body they pump up. I feel weird playing against Rune because I feel like every game I win because they bricked, but then I think about what I could actually do to interact with the Runecraft game plan, and I go, oh yeah. So they're like, they must be out of gas, they've only got 3 cards left. And that's true. Things are still, hey, it's Kagamitsu. Anyway, I top-decked the best 2-mana removal in the entire game, so please just go away and deal with the dogs. So as it turns out, after drawing their entire deck, they do actually have another AoE removal tool. I actually completely forget about that mode of Sagelight every time. So let's review the situation. I have a Geno on the board, and 2 cards in hand that accomplish exactly nothing this late in the game. And they have a 10-10. How is Yugi gonna get out of this one? Fucking based. This does look pretty illegitimate, but I would like to remind you that their top decks are much more constrained because they already drew and played their entire deck by this point in the match anyway, and now we get to watch the only fucking time Geno has ever hit face, ever.
All burnt out.
Anyway, if you're against Forest, play the ones with the shield icon on them.